We're in the middle of peak fantasy football draft season, and on today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have a fan favorite because Mean Team. We have Keegan Thompson's favorite pick in each round of fantasy football drafts.
AKA the all fade team.
I am your host, Shaun Moran, and I am joined by my good friend, the man who's playing with his microphone and blowing my ear up, fellow knower of ball, and the man of the hour, Keegan Thomson. Keegan, brother, how we do today, man?
Man, if it was up to the YouTube commenters, you would not draft any of these players, but we're still going to get the picks out. We're still going to tell the people how I'm drafting, and we're going to see if the Mean Team is in agreement with me this year. I've seen a lot of comments about my takes. I'm probably wrong on Rashee Rice, but that's a hill that I have to die on because I've built the hill myself.
You don't have to die. Hey, look, you can sell that property. It's not too late.
It's too late. It is too late.
Sell that house on the hill. Someone will buy it.
My best ball bags are packed. I'm wrapping up redraft season. I've run out of bullets. The chamber is empty. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. We're going to share some good picks. Hopefully some ones that people vibe with. I hope the Mean Team likes it. This is a good episode every year. I haven't heard Aiden's yet. I don't know who he's picked. I know you asked Aiden his favorite picks in every round, so I'm curious to see if my fellow coworker and I have some alignment here.
We'll see. We'll see if there's a little Venn diagram crossover, but we'll get there. The format for today's episode is super simple. Keegan has his favorite selections in rounds 1 through 12 of fantasy football drafts, and it only has 3 kickers this time, so it's going to be a great. We're going to be going round by round here, so we're going to start off with round 1. But before we do that, one quick thing. You know, we're a relatively new podcast, new channel. Keegan and I started this up pretty much 2 years ago. Fast forward to today, and, you know, we've kind of growing YouTube channel. We're growing every day. It's super exciting. But we have full-time jobs. It's a labor of love to get this podcast out. It's a ton of fun. We'd love to turn it into something more, but we can't do it without all of you. We need your help. So if this is the first time you're seeing us, YouTube decided to show our video for whatever reason, and you're watching and you like what we're putting out there, you know what to do. If you could subscribe to this video, it would mean a lot. If you watched us multiple times and you just haven't, you know, decided to hit that click that button, this is the perfect day to do it. Today is the day. We really appreciate it. We can't get there without you. Keegan is our chief pandering officer. How did I do? Feedback?
Pretty good. Okay. I
Okay.
think the new listeners will definitely be in agreement. If you haven't seen a video yet, welcome. If you have and you're on the fence, today's the day. Every day we get better, and we get better by prescribing RTM. Yes, subscribing to RTM. I'm going to prescribe a couple running backs pretty early on here, so I'm excited.
Prescribing a little Achane. That's how you keep the doctor away.
Are you forecasting my
selection a day? Okay, Aiden. All right, Keegan.
Wow.
All right, Keegan. Your first pick. Who is your favorite pick in round 1?
Hard not to be team no bias here. I don't want to be team no bias, but I'm actually going to go with Justin Jefferson.
Whoa, I even typed in Garrett Wilson.
I think the value on Justin Jefferson will continue to slip. I think the picks in the first round that I really am in favor of, I think the top 3 is pretty hard to screw up. Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, go for it. Once it gets to 4, it gets a little bit dicey. I do love Brees in this round, but I think Justin Jefferson is an otherworldly wide receiver. It doesn't really matter who his quarterback is either. I'm a pretty big believer in Kevin O'Connell and the system that they have in place. I know J.J. McCarthy is not going to play this year, but Sam Darnold is in line to play 17 games. And if that scares your teammates and your league mates, good. Take advantage of Justin Jefferson falling in drafts. I think he's quarterback proof, and normally good players are also situation proof, but that's the best part about this. The situation is going to be amazing. I mean, he played 10 games and still eclipsed 1,000 yards last year
98 with the legs yards a game.
With the likes of Nick Mullins and Josh Doubs in the fold. Like, if you don't think Sam Darnold can do that to Justin Jefferson, then I don't know what to tell you. So if you're anything past like the 5 mark, I'm definitely tapping Justin Jefferson in the first round. Game-breaking wide receiver. Amazing environment to be in from an offensive perspective. I think their defense is still going to give up some points too, so they should still be on the field plenty. I think they're going to run a lot of plays this year, and maybe a couple games of Addison suspension, Hawkinson recovering from injury. There's also not a lot of competition for Justin Jefferson. Not that it would matter for a player of his caliber, but he's got to be one of my favorite picks. I mean, if JJ McCarthy was playing or if it was still Kirk, we'd be talking about Justin Jefferson being the first pick overall.
So you are a 1-for-1. That was Aiden's favorite pick. Yeah,
I
Justin
should have done Brees. But
hey, look, Jettas is this might be the cheapest you can get Jettas. Like, just straight up. It's gonna go like 6 or 7. Someone's gonna be afraid of Sam Darnold. I get it. I would love it if it was someone a little bit more consistent or higher upside. But Darnold has had a history of just chucking that ball deep. Whether it looks pretty or not, he's got a little Jameis Winston in him. And I do think that creates a good environment for Justin Jefferson. So
DJ Moore put up 1,000 yards and like 7 touchdowns with Sam Darnold playing quarterback. And it's not a knock on DJ Moore, but like Justin Jefferson moves different.
Different caliber of player.
Gosh, I almost want you to give me a sneak peek of who Aiden's favorite pick in round 2 was, because I want to make sure I give the listeners something different.
Let's go. Round 2. Let's hear it.
How do you not tap Devon Achane in the second round?
There it is.
Are we 2 for 2?
No.
Okay. Okay. How do you not tap the guy who broke fantasy football when on the field last year? Don't look at that sleeper board and look at the games missed. Look at the sleeper board and look at the games where he played. I've watched Devon Achane since he got to Texas A&M. I had a big feeling that when he got to the NFL, he'd be much more than what people forecasted him. The BMI bros are furious at Devon Achane's usage in the NFL. I mean, he's too small. He can't handle a big workload. His competition is a 32-year-old running back, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright, who played in a candy-ass Tennessee offense in college. This is a guy who can legit break your league scoring settings. Like, he's viable to put up 35 plus on a given week, regardless of who they're playing. One of the most creative play callers in the NFL right now, Mike McDaniel, and they're constantly innovating too. Like, what you saw last year from Miami is not what you'll see this year. You'll see glimpses of it, but it'll constantly be changing, and they set their players up for success. And him lining up as a wide receiver is going to catapult him into a different territory of running back here. I know Shaun's got the Sims pulled up, and honestly, the Sims don't even look that crazy. I legit don't think people can predict what Devon Achane is capable of doing.
I mean, his second sim is 2021 JT, who was, that was number 1 running back JT, man. Like, his ceiling is unbelievable. Like, you're not going to win fantasy football playing it safe. You may get to the playoffs every year playing it safe, but when was the last time you played it safe and won your league ship? You need game records.
Go look at the sleeper again and look at the weeks where he went off. Like, those aren't just big weeks. Those are weeks that are strong enough to win your matchup. Even if he doesn't play every game, if he gives you 10 insane weeks, you just won 10 weeks. That's 10 games that you've won because Devon Achane went off. It's hard not for me to draft him.
He's going to be used as a receiver, like truly as a receiver. Like, I think you can have him and Mostert like on your fantasy team easily. Like, Achane is he's next level, man. He's my flag plant of flag plants. Perfect pick in round 2. Especially, you can draft both of these guys. You could take Jettis at the 106 or 105, and then you can take Achane. So you can do that back to back. All right, Keegan. Round 3.
As much as it pains me to do this as a New York Jets fan, I'm double dipping in the Miami waters, and I'm talking about Jaylen Waddle in round 3. And I drafted so much Jaylen Waddle in best ball this year. I've already scooped him up in my redraft teams. This is a player who doesn't need contingent upside to hit home at the wide receiver position. I know they've got Tyreek, but they don't have anybody after that. And the way their offensive works is they get the balls to their best players, and they also get them the ball in space. They have one of the fastest skill position groups, if not the fastest in the NFL. And last year, Waddle was banged up, missed games, and there were several games where he didn't eclipse over 55% of the snaps. and he was still having some amazing fantasy games. I think this year, if he's fully healthy, it's all go, like all full steam ahead for Jaylen Waddle. That offense is going to light up the NFL yet again. And if, not saying anything will, but if something were to happen to Tyreek Hill, imagine getting Jaylen Waddle in the third round of your fantasy drafts, and all of a sudden it's to the moon. I mean, we're talking about starting a team with Justin Jefferson, Devon, Achane, and Jaylen Waddle. And if anything happens to Tyreek Hill, Waddle will go to the moon. But the best part about him is he doesn't need that to go off. Like, he doesn't need Tyreek Hill to miss games for him to be an insane wide receiver pick for you in the third round.
Yeah, you don't really see this in the third round where you see the ceiling at 20 points per game on the high level for Waddle in terms of his simulated projections for 2024 in terms of range of outcomes. It's a little bit lower than some third round picks are going to get in terms of his mid. Some mid guys are going to be at 14, 15. It's a little more secure, but they don't have that 20-point ceiling. So Waddle has a huge ceiling regardless of Tyreek. And yeah, I mean, if something happens to Tyreek, Waddle's going to be a top 5, top 6 weekly play. I think you can set your watch to that. Now, again, I love Cheetah. Hopefully nothing happens to Cheetah. But Waddle is a great pick regardless of what happens to Tyreek Hill. All right, Keegan. Round 4, who do you got?
I do it every year. I've done it this year already, and I'm going to keep doing it until the wheels fall off. I'm drafting Jalen Hurts in the 4th round of every fantasy draft I could possibly have. What's there else to say about Jalen Hurts at this point of his career? I feel like people nitpick him so much over any other elite fantasy quarterback. I mean, Allen might go in the 3rd. He's probably going to go before Hurts. We can talk about Mahomes and the upside of this year with the new pass catching weapons, but is there anybody as consistent at getting you 25 plus points a game as Jalen Hurts outside of Josh Allen? There are no down weeks. Look at that.
There's what happens when you score 15 rushing touchdowns every year. But yeah, it's crazy.
Jason Kelce handpicked his replacement at center. He handpicked. And there is no sign of them stopping the tush push, even if Saquon Barkley is there. I think the offense is going to get better at that. Even look at the last couple of weeks of a season. He did have that one really bad game, but from week 10 and on, he still had what? I'm trying to look at the zoomed in screen. 19, 41, 25, had an 8 bomb, but then 23, 26, 26.
And look at this.
One 9, bad week.
3-2. 9, 3-2. Like, this is what he's done
every year. I mean, if I think of the 4th round picks I could make, there are a couple players I like. I like Devonta Smith. I think maybe grabbing Laporta here is good, but let's be honest. I could get 25 plus points every week for my quarterback without a doubt, and I don't even have to think about it. Like, I'm doing it every time. I'm a big fan of elite QB, but
it's a lot of Cam Newtons here. He's getting comped to Cam Newton, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Dante Culpepper, Cam Newton, Dante Culpepper, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. These are all good names. I think, yeah, Hurts, you can set your watch to it, man. I agree with you, man. He's one of the best picks you can make in fantasy. And what's crazy is like last year's a down year for him, and he was the QB too, right? Like, that offense stunk in terms of like design and creativity, and it was still like 10th in EPA. Like, I don't really love the Eagles. I think they're a little overrated. I don't love Kellen Moore. It doesn't matter. I think Jalen Hurts is the guy you want. The receivers are great. I am team Jalen Hurts over Saquon Barkley. That's why I'm a little bit lower than consensus on Barkley, is because I just don't think anything's going to happen to Hurts. I think they're going to run the tush push. That's their team identity. Like, Fat goes, come on. Like, that's their superpower, man. Like, they're going to keep running that tush push. I'm not worried about that at all. All right, Keegan. Round 5. What do we got here?
This is a really tricky round for me because it kind of depends on where players are going. And he might be early 5th. He might slide to the 5th. I know I've already gotten him in the 5th round of a draft, but T. Higgins. And if you think that's chalk, if you think that's not right, Shaun, feel free to let me know, because I do have a backup pick for this round. But
no, I think that's 5th. I think he's going in the 5th round. That seems pretty.
I don't care either that it's the Jamar Chase hasn't really played. He's holding in. Like, good players. I think there's a lot of FUD around players hold out, like they're not going to be as good. I think it matters more for running backs, specifically with injuries and just like not getting the same reps. But I think really good wide receivers don't falter as much. So I think Jamar Chase can be fine, but that's not going to scare me away from taking T. Higgins at probably his lowest value at what since he's been a rookie in fantasy drafts. I mean, we're only 2 years removed from him being like the wide receiver 12 on a points per game basis, is like top 15 wide receiver on a points per game basis. Joe Burrow is going to be healthier this year. T. Higgins should be healthy. They don't have a lot of target comp. I like Jermaine Burton. I can never say his name right. Yosevas.
Yoshivas.
Yoshavas. Okay, Yoshavas. Also, no more Joe Mixon to kind of like eat up those checkdowns as well too. I think T. Higgins is going to play a really big role, and that is a good wide receiver. I think with a safe floor to add in your 5th round of your fantasy drafts, that's tied to an offense that should be very good again. I like the way the offensive line's been looking. A lot of good positive buzz around them too. More time for Burrow in the pocket. I think T. Higgins might be a weapon this year. If you look at my Twitter, obviously it says president of the T. Higgins fan club. This is a full bias pick, but I think the value is just too good to ignore this year.
Yeah, you may be on an island with that whole presidency of the fan club thing, but yeah, I think he's a good pick. I just feel like the whole argument against T. Higgins has always been you had to pay up for the clear wide receiver too, and he's in a contract year. He's healthy because last year was kind of an injury mulligan. Who knows what Jamar Chase is up to with this holdout? Man, I think T. Higgins could have a nice year and actually beat his ADP, which is like wide receiver like 27. Like that seems like a pretty good place to take T. Higgins. Like you have some builds where T. Higgins is your wide receiver 3. You're going to take that every day of the week.
Big time.
All right. 6th round. We're almost halfway there. Who do you got?
Gosh, I'm trying to assess the ADP. I'm trying to help like build rosters also. And I know what I've done: wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, or quarterback, wide receiver. And it's hard for me to look at the board here and want to go with another running back. But there's one I like that's really safe in this range, and it's David Montgomery.
Monty, you're standing 10 tones here. You love David Montgomery. This has been a take for a long time. Tell us why you're in on Monty.
I'll never forget that graphic of him coming out of college. And I'm going to butcher what it was. Yeah, the Frankenstein, like the feet of whatever, like body of Frank. I don't know. That's crazy. I wish I could pull that up on the screen right now. But
I might do it. Keep talking. I'll pull it up.
The situation with David Montgomery is this. Number one, offensive line heading into the season, not just by my thoughts. Like I know Pat Thorman thinks they're going to be number one offensive line. A lot of people at ESPN and NFL think they're going to be the number one offensive line. They're coming off, yeah, there it is. Feet of Saquon Barkley, vision of Le'Veon Bell, strength of Ezekiel, athleticism of
Sony Michel. That's
such hilarious. A random one, but he is a little bit of Frankenstein. I just think when you talk about drafting RB2s, it's usually scary, right? In timeshare offenses, but this is an offense that's coming off one of the best years of Detroit Lions history in terms of offensive output, and nothing has changed for them. The weapons that they haven't changed. It's the same roster. Maybe you get an uptick in usage from Jameson Williams, but they're going to run the ball. And how many running backs in this range are coming off a 10 touchdown, 1,000-yard season? Like, tell me that. Tell me who's in this range coming off that productive of a season. And I think Gibbs is going to be better this year. I think Gibbs is going to get more work. But I don't think Dan Campbell is just going to push David Montgomery to the side, who's still a very good running back in the NFL. It's going to have a lot of success, and he is bigger than Gibbs. He is good around the goal line. He's good in short yard situations. Like his role is so valuable. And like I said, he's coming off 1,000-yard rushing season and 10 touchdowns just last year. And we're just ignoring it because Gibbs, I think they both can smash. Like nobody says that these two can't eat. It's not a Bijan Algier situation. You know, it's not Josh Jacobs situation, I don't even think it's comparable to Achane and Mostert, even though last year was kind of like that. I legit think David Montgomery has standalone value, and in the 6th round, you're getting a really good running back to kind of balance out your room.
And you get the contingency upside too. Like if Gibbs has got some bulky hamstrings to start the year, I'm not saying.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything about the hammies because I'm all in on Gibbs too. I didn't want to talk about the hammies, but
just saying, it's a reminder. Like if David Montgomery is not sharing that backfield, I mean, like pencil him in top 5 weekly play. Like if David Montgomery was just him, he'd probably be going where Pacheco, Kyren, and all those guys go. Like, I think,
gosh, what was the
pencil
week
it in.
last year? I'm trying to remember the week that Gibbs didn't play.
The Chargers.
Maybe I'm trying to
Let me
look at
see.
Montgomery's
I've
score
got it right here.
here.
34 against Green Bay, I think.
There you go. Like, that's what happens.
Crazy. Yeah, man, he was ultra consistent. This is a good RB2 with upside. Round 7, Keegan.
Round 7. Odd group of players here. Odd group. I think in round 6, there's going to be some rookies that go that I'm a really big fan of that I would love to have in round 7. But when I look at the rest of the board, it's hard not to want to draft Diontae Johnson in the 7th round.
Hey, why not just keep coming back for more? Doesn't matter if they're toxic or they hurt you. Just keep coming back for more. Diontae Johnson, baby.
Number 1 target getter in an offense that I'm not a fan of, but I think he just might be a safe fantasy pick. And look, round 7 and on, I think it really starts in round 8. You're probably never going to drop your first 6 draft picks unless an injury happens. Round 7, you'd like to not draft them, or drop them. But once you get to round 8 and beyond, like the ability to drop a player is really easy, right? If they're just not performing, I think after that, the fall off is pretty strong. But Diontae Johnson's going to be an every week contributor. He's going to be very consistent, especially in PPR leagues. He's got the ghost of Adam Thielen. I love Xavier Legette, but Bryce Young really needs a wide receiver he can depend on, but he needs a wide receiver that can get open. And Diontae Johnson does one thing really well, and it's get open. 2 things.
Oh, yeah.
Go to the blue medical tent and get open.
Get open, baby.
Sometimes he opens the blue medical tent, comes out, and it gets open again. That is kind of his forte. He loves to do that. But
that is DJ.
He's probably going to walk into 130 targets this year, like modestly, and he's going to reap the benefits in PPR format. It's not an exciting pick, but I think it's a very safe pick in this round. There's a couple other players I like. I think Jaden Reed's fine in this round. Maybe go with a tight end position, but I really like Diontae Johnson as a safety pick.
Yeah, I mean, the guy had 147 targets and 0 touchdowns in a season. He's just a hilarious player. But yeah, I agree. He's like the textbook, really good receiver who goes to a bad team with a quarterback needs to improve with a good OC, and then you just smash. Like, he's not like of the same caliber as some of these guys who smash, but he's like prime for the DJ Moore explosion. He's prime for the whole AJ Brown explosion. Like, I know I need to be careful how I phrase it, but like we've Stephon Diggs, like every year this happens, right? Where a veteran guy goes to a new team with a good OC, they pepper him with targets and he does well. Like Diontae is that guy, right? It's an archetype you want to bet in fantasy. So yeah,
let me guess.
I'm
he took Kyler in the 7th.
He took Kyler in the 6th.
Oh, okay. I like that.
You taking Kyler?
No, because we just got out of the 7th round, so we're going into the 8 here.
Okay.
8 is a tough range for me, but if you've noticed, I've kind of punted on the tight end position here, and I actually just did this in our mock draft. But Jake Ferguson in the 8th round to me feels like, I don't want to call it free money, but what we are talking about is a wide receiver 2 in an offense that's projected to be a top 5 scoring offense, tied to Dak Prescott. His target competition is Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks outside of CeeDee Lamb. They have Rico Dowdle and Zeke Elliott out of the backfield. They need somebody desperately to step up and catch the ball. And like Jake Ferguson's like totally a fine and safe pick here for me. I'd love if he was going a little bit later, but when I think of some of the people that are going in this round, Zamir Whites of the world, maybe Raheem Mostert. I've already got Devon Achane, Jameson Williams. Like, there's good players in this round, but I want to make sure I don't get too deep into the tight end range without walking away with a solid player. And I think his floor at tight end is fine. I mean, give me 9-10 points here for my 8th round pick a week, and that's okay. And I don't really have to worry about my tight end. You might have some down weeks, but I think it's better than waiting at this point. It's if you miss out on the elite guys, which I'm not typically an elite tight end unless somebody falls to me, I'm still getting a lot of good value out of somebody like Jake Ferguson to at least know that I walk in every week with not a bad chance to win the tight end battle, right? Because that's how I think of redraft. Like, every week I need to look at my opponent's roster and say, do these positions stack up? Like, where do I have an advantage? And typically, tight end can be a wash unless you're going up against the Laporta guy, right, or the McBride guy. But if
Yeah.
I'm winning the other position battles and I know Ferg is going to get me 9 to 12 points, like I feel pretty confident with that.
Man, his comps are pretty solid. Charles Clay, what a throwback. Dude, I just saw Larry Donnell, and that threw me back, man. 2014 Larry Donnell was special. What are his? I mean, yeah, they're saying 2015 Travis Kelce is his number one comp here in The Sims. Maybe
Not bad.
maybe Keegan's onto something.
Not
All right,
bad.
man. Round 9. Who do you got?
Round 9. I'm going to have to go back to the running back well here. I think in round 9, I'm going to wait on some wide receivers here and make sure I get another running back on my roster. But Tyjae Spears, man. Tyjae Spears.
I love Tyjae.
I was actually thinking about Tony Pollard in one of the early rounds when I was coming up with my thoughts for these players, but this is going to be a backfill where it's kind of a 1A, 1B situation. And with bringing in Brian Callahan, we've talked about this on a ton of episodes. I don't want to beat the drum anymore on this, but they're going to throw the ball. And Tyjae Spears is a good pass catching back, and so is Tony Pollard, but they're going to spread the ball around. They have kind of some older wide receivers in Tyler Boyd and DeAndre Hopkins. They do have Calvin Ridley that they brought in, but I think they're going to lean on Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard pretty readily, and it's going to be an awesome split for those two where I think they're both going to have fantasy value standalone. I don't have any problems with drafting Tony Pollard, but I think I'd rather just wait on the running back if I was going to get one from Tennessee and go with Tyjae Spears. Guy has no ACLs, and it doesn't really matter.
None. You know how much I loved him coming out of school. I was a big fan of the man from the what's the green wave? What is
the Tulane?
Yes,
the green
blue
wave.
wave. Is the green wave? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I loved him coming out of school. That tape he put up against USC, I know the defense was.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, man, he kicked the shit out of USC.
Yeah, man, that was so sweet. He was such a Senior Bowl standout. He crushed every element of his senior year. I love Tyjae. He's dynamic. He's good with the ball in his hands, and we all know that Tony Pollard is atrocious in the red zone. Atrocious. We saw this in a limited sample time in the preseason. Tony looked great, explosive. I was like, hell yeah, Tony P might be back. Immediately gets stuffed at the 1 yard line. I was like, okay, they bring in Tyjae scores. So if he's the goal line back plus his PPR work, that's awesome. Give me that every day of the week, especially they're going to run a shit ton of plays. So I love Tyjae. It's a great pick. Round 10, Keegan.
What if I told you in round 10, you could get the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers who is going to play probably the most snaps at the position, and you don't have to worry about him fighting for drives. You don't have to worry about him in 3 wide receiver sets. The man behind the high snap percentage is Romeo Doubs, as Shaun has pulled up. Jordan Love, who would you ask to hold your ring to make sure they didn't drop it? Romeo Doubs. Who, when he drew up a special play that's a beating play for any defensive scheme, who's his wide receiver? Romeo Doubs.
He had him running the clear out route.
Yeah, he had the sacrificial X.
He even had him being the guy that no one's going to guard. It's just one-on-one deep ball guy. That killed me.
I love the idea of the Green Bay Packers wide receiver room. I don't love the idea of figuring out who's going to hit home every week. I do know that there's one safest pick of the group in my mind, and to me, it's Romeo Doubs. Obviously, a big fan of Wicks. I think Christian Watson is maybe due for a little bounce back, but Watson and Wicks are probably going to be the ones switching on their side of the field. And then Reed, you kind of need them to play in 3 wide receiver sets to get him in, or maybe they have some formations where he's on the field and it's Doubs, Reed, Watson, or it's Doubs, Reed, Wicks. But the common theme here is it starts Doubs, right? It's always going to be Doubs and some other wide receiver. And I just think it's way too cheap for him. Watson's going before Doubs, and the reason he does is because, we think of the big boom games, and Reed is going before Doubs because he had scored on 15% of his total opportunities last year, which is not sustainable. I mean, caught 10 touchdowns last year, which is fantastic, but I'm like the red zone threat idea of Romeo Doubs. I like the relationship he has with Jordan Love. I think the drumbeat around the Packers org has been pretty strong for Doubs as well, too. So way too cheap for me. That's going to be tied to a really good offense.
Dude, yeah. Doubs is I don't think he's the talent that Nico Collins is, but there's some similarities, man. Year 3, they were both 4th round picks, both tall, pretty good athleticism. I don't know, man. Like Dobbs is somebody that is a priority target for me. I'm happy to see him make your list here.
Yeah, I want a piece of that offense, and I don't want to get kind of pushed to the side by it. I don't want to have to deal with who's going to start every week or who's going to hit home. I want to lock in and be safe.
Reed and Dobbs, I'd say those are the two. And then if rational coaching prevails, Wicks, but someone will get hurt and then someone will go off. That's how it goes, man.
What are we, round 11 here?
Round 11, two more.
Safest running back you can make in the late rounds, Rico Dowdle. I think he's going to be the RB1 for Dallas. I think Zeke might be viable as a running back some weeks, but Zeke is old. And it's nothing against him. He's just gotten older in his career. There's a lot more tread on the tires of Rico Dowdle. And look, I drafted Jake Ferguson in this roundup, and a lot of these picks are tied to pretty good offenses. And that's what I want in the late rounds. If I'm going to take a swing on somebody, give me a player who's tied to a really good offense. I mean, who are we expecting to get goal line touches for Dallas? Like, I can't say for certain it's going to be 70% Dowdle, but who's going to be running the ball more towards the end of the season? Is Zeke going to be able to stay up with the pace of the season, or are the wheels going to fall off? Like, I'm willing to take a bet on Rico Dowdle, who I think is going to be the RB1 for them. And it feels like such a safe pick, especially because I've been light on the RBs, through my drafting. I feel like I'm falling into Rico in the 11th quite a bit.
Yeah, Dowdle's interesting. He was an enemy of Tony Pollard drafters because you'd be like watching Red Zone and be like, "Oh wow, Pollard looks good," and they're like, "No, that's Dowdle. Damn it!" You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh no!" You're like, "Oh, Pollard just finally scored a touchdown. It's over." And it was like, "Nope, that was Dowdle. He caught that screen pass and just looked electric and scored a touchdown." Yeah, Dowdle's interesting. A lot of film bros loved him coming out of school, and then he was just super injured his first 2 years in the league. So last year was basically his first year in the NFL, even though he'd been with the Cowboys for a while. The Sims are interesting. I would expect it a little bit lower, but they have him as like a high ceiling of 16 points, which is pretty solid. 7 is his mid. I'm seeing some Jaylen Warren. I see some even Tony Pollard, the guy he's replacing. Yeah, I think he's like the perfect 11th round pick. I mean, come on. Like, you drop him if it doesn't work out. Why not try and get the guy who could start for a really good offense?
Exactly. That's the thing with these players too. Like, you drop them and not worry about it, right? Like, it's not going to kill you. Maybe like me though, and you need a running back, and this is only your third one that you drafted. If I'm thinking about it, I have Achane, Monty, Tyjae, and Rico. He's only my fourth, so maybe you don't want to drop him if you're me. But yeah, you can easily kick the tires on it, see if it works, see how the first couple of weeks go, and if it burns you, it doesn't really burn you.
All right. Last one. Who do we got here? Who we rounded it out with?
This is like it's dart throw territory, but it's also like strategic dart throw territory, especially if you play in like a keeper, or you're thinking about the next season, or you're thinking about upside. I want to go with a rookie here. He might be going in your 11th round. I think he's still going in the 12th in a lot of like ADP evaluations here, but AD Mitchell.
Knew it. You're in on Mitchell now? Oh man, these are my guys. You guys are now in on Mitchell. Wow. Okay.
Obviously,
I didn't expect it.
If you're a mean team, or if you're Shaun, you know that I'm a huge Josh Downs guy.
Yeah.
Big play threat with AD Mitchell is what excites me. I don't really consider Pittman like big play threat. I consider him a kind of a target hog. I think the same of Josh Downs. I think he has some wiggle after the catch, and his ability to run any route from any side of the field or any like lineup in the field is pretty awesome. But they don't really have a wide receiver like AD Mitchell in that room. And when I think of a random week and I need to plug in somebody with some upside, and I don't want just 9 points, like I need a big game out of a guy because I got somebody on a bye week, think of the rookie with good route running, insane deep ball catching abilities. And I think of AD Mitchell, Anthony Richardson launching a pass 40 yards downfield to 80, and he runs in for the touchdown. Like, those are the kind of players I want to put on my roster at the end of the year. And look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it's frustrating, that's fine. I can just drop him. But who's to say he doesn't just go off, right? Like, who's to say he doesn't just immediately become their go-to deep threat? And maybe that's not viable for every week production, but like, there's going to be some boom weeks with AD Mitchell. The ceiling is high. The floor is maybe lower than you would like, but I'm down to go for upside at this point in the draft. I love the Colts offense this year.
Moving him immediately into the slot was so bullish. was like, oh, this man's just gonna get layup targets. Like Steichen knows ball, man. He's like, why don't I put a really talented guy in the slot? Like AD Mitchell can roast outside corners, and they're like, let's put him in space in the slot. That is ultra bullish. Now I think Josh Downs comes back and slides back in, but like, high ankles can nag, man. Josh Downs was banged up last year. Mitchell slides into that slot role. Man, you're cooking with gas. The RPO heavy offense, man. Whoo, baby. I love the Mitchell pick, man. If you miss out on Brian Thomas, Mitchell's a nice consolation prize. This is I drafted Doubs and Mitchell in our home league draft that we had last weekend, by the way. So it's nice to see some of the guys that were on my board get picked here.
Yeah, just for reference, like if anybody's like, these aren't his favorite picks, I legit have a roster with Waddle, Hurts, Higgins, and Monty.
Yeah.
That we did just a week ago.
He did.
And Dowdle.
He's got those guys. He really does.
I'm standing 10 toes down for my guys. But yeah, just a recap here for the listeners going through. So round 1, Justin Jefferson.
Jettas.
Round 2, Devon Achane. Round 3, Jaylen Waddle. Round 4, we get the elite QB, Jalen Hurts. Round 5, we're going with T. Higgins. Round 6, David Montgomery for some solid running back safety valve there. Then we go to Diontae Johnson in the 7th, Jake Ferguson in the 8th, Tyjae Spears in the 9th, Romeo Doubs in the 10th, Rico Dowdle in the 11th, and AD Mitchell in the 12th. It's not a bad team.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad team at all, man. I'm vibing with this. I'm vibing with it a lot, man. I'm trying to see if there wasn't much crossover. There was Jettas, who was in Aiden's list.
I'm shocked.
I'm forgetting now who the crossover was, but I'm sure there is. Aiden will get a kick out of it, learning who your 12 were, and then we're gonna finish this up where you guys host. I think Keegan, you'll host it when it's my turn to go.
I would love that.
Yeah, it'll be fun when I get to do my favorite 12. But Keegan, man, this is always a blast. Thank you for giving your picks. Thank you for sharing your hand to all the buddies that play against you in leagues to watch. It's a brave man to do this and give out your picks, but we appreciate you, man. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in, for rocking with us. Drop your comments below, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, be productive. Be productive.
Productive.
All right. See you, everybody.